downtown Oklahoma City at the corner of Sheridan and Hudson. I'm Dave Morris, joined by this guy, Steve Lackmeyer with the Oklahoman. You know, Steve, it's an intersection of activity this morning on this Tuesday morning. Over here, we thought we were going to have towers where the Stage Center building used to be. Behind us, there's definitely a tower going up. And of course, over here, I remember doing a stand-up with you several years ago before Devon Towers. That is large and in charge as it is. Steve, first of all, let's start with the OGE Towers. What happened there?
Well, if you'll recall, this time last year, we still thought there might be 4 towers built there. OGE Energy Corp, Chicago-based Clayco, and local businessman G. Rainey Williams. They had bought the Stage Center site. They tore it down, saying they were going to build 2 buildings there. At the time, Rainey Williams indicated that they were prepared to do it. It was financed. It wasn't going to be a problem. Then they expanded the scope of it, sought to buy the south half of the block, which is largely owned by the city, and they did an RFP. They and one other developer, Millhouse, submitted proposals. Millhouse submitted a proposal for, as I recall, a 20 or 21 story apartment tower and a garage. Clayco proposed matching towers to 2 that they were going to do on the north half of the block. So they were proposing a 26-story residential tower, 25-story office tower for OGE, and then they were proposing another 25-story tower that would be spec'd office space and another 26-story residential tower. And all along they acted like this would be no problem, except they asked for over $100 million in tax increment financing, and things didn't go well. And Clayco's approach to City Hall was not well received. I'm not sure if Clayco understood the best way to approach City Hall on such a massive request. Needless to say, things fell apart, and it may have been for the best. This downtown is in a different place than it was even 3 years ago, and I'm not sure we could have handled all that office space.
So instead of having those 5 or so towers you're talking about, that didn't happen, but behind us.
Oh yes, so a different developer, Hines, is doing the first speculative office tower built in over 30 years. It's called BOK Plaza. That is to reflect the anchor tenant, BOK, Bank of Oklahoma, which is consolidating all their operations throughout the city into this tower. Devon Energy across the street is leased another 250,000 square feet. They're going to have 2 9-story garages. One is topping out right to the north of the tower at 9 stories. The other one is just getting started where the old Union Bus Station was, to the west of the tower. And the tower itself is about 9 stories high. It will be 27 stories high when it's done. So it's going to have quite a bit of height.
It's amazing how fast these buildings go up, though. I remember the Devon Tower, watching that. It seemed like it was going to take forever, and then the next thing you know, oh, it's pretty much done. You say this is 9 of 27. What's the timeline?
Well, this one's going to be done by late 2017. And, well, you know, when all the OGE Energy Center project got put on hold in December, January, we thought that was going to be the end of the towers for a while.
However, as you picked up the Oklahoman today on Tuesday, the front page story by this gentleman, Mr. Steve Lackmeyer, or you can find it online at newsok.com, oklahoman.com, a little something called Times Square OKC.
Yes, there is a really wonderful piece of land that is at E.K. Gaylord, Northwest 4th and Broadway. And it's a triangular bit of land where E.K. Gaylord flows in to reconnect with Broadway. And it was a creation of the I&P plan decades ago. They changed the street grid. Needless to say, this thing has remained surface parking and green space for decades since.
In fact, during lunch, you can find guys out there playing Frisbee.
Right. Now, about a decade ago, the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber sought to buy half the property, which was controlled and still is controlled by the Urban Renewal Authority. And the other half, and it's kind of like jigsaw shaped, is been controlled by different private property owners over the years. At one point it was owned by Opevco, later it was owned by Sandridge, and then it was bought a couple years ago by Jonathan Russell. who is better known for having redeveloped the Rise on Uptown Northwest 23rd and is turning the Gold Dome into a Natural Grocers. And then you've got Mark Ruffin, who's joined him. Mark Ruffin is a veteran of downtown development. He and Nick Preftakes did the very first modern loft housing in downtown in 1995 at the Garage at Northwest 13th and Broadway, which has remained full since it opened. Great project, and it's one of the unsung heroes of downtown housing.
It caps the very end of Automobile Alley at 13th
Yeah.
and Broadway, like you mentioned.
Yeah. So for the last couple of years, they've been trying to figure out what to do with this thing because they actually it's a dog that caught the car. This is a hard piece of property to get. So they've got the western 2/3 of that block. What they don't have is the east third that abuts the BNSF Railway Viaduct and is right next to Deep Deuce. So they have submitted a proposal to Urban Renewal Authority to buy that third and to include it in what they're calling Times Square at OKC. It's a 17-story apartment tower, about 293 apartments. You would have retail on the first floor of the tower, and then there would be a 1-story or 2-story building that would face toward the west and toward the north, looking out onto E.K. Gaylord. Maybe a pharmacy, maybe Walmart, neighborhood mart that we know has been kicking tires might get interested. And they would have a pool on this, and it would have some spectacular views.
I like how Steve just drops maybe a neighborhood Walmart, because we need a grocery store down here. Then he just casually mentions a pool, because guess what? A pool would be nice down here too.
Yeah, and this pool would have decks overlooking it. And again, they'll have views of almost every part of the skyline. And it's a great connection between Deep Deuce, Auto Alley, Bricktown, and Central Business District. This is the last real undeveloped great property left in the Central Business District.
All right, we started this talking about OG&E or OGE Towers and how that hasn't happened. Let's talk about this. Will it happen?
Well, they're asking for $10 million. That is much more in line with what City Hall has been looking at and giving favorable consideration for in terms of such assistance. With OG&E Energy Center and Clayco and G. Rainey Williams, no matter how you slice it, they were looking at anywhere from 30 to 40 million at one point per tower. I had some real questions about whether or not, even toward the end of the boom, whether we could handle that much additional spec office space at once, considering we have BOK Plaza coming online. We're also going to be looking at 3 large garages surrounding John Rex Elementary. So there are some real questions and concerns out there about that.
In your story today, you talk about the studies that they have done over there at Times Square OKC for the residential side. So they're saying there's still demand.
Oh yeah, and they're also saying that when you look at the rent structure locally, it's hard to do a comp. Because what you have is Regency Tower, built in 1967, 26 stories. Functionally obsolete, yet popular and full. The ceilings are low there, but it's got great views of the skyline. It's in a great location, so it stays full. But is it what we would consider modern housing? No. Despite some really nice renovations, the owners have done everything they can with a structure that was built with ceilings that were way too low. This is a modern mid to high rise. It's not quite high rise, but it's not your typical mid rise either. It's right there in the cusp. They've looked at Dallas rents, and they've tried to compare what they would call stick construction rents, which is basically The Edge, Level, Ivana, Deep Deuce, the ones that are about 3 to 5 stories. And you take that difference between the rents, and then you look at the rents that similar mid to high rises are getting in Dallas. And that's where they come up with the market feasibility that says, yeah, this can work here. We can get this rent. So they're looking at about $2.03 per square foot. And that doesn't sound outrageous to me either. I think that'll work pretty well, especially when you consider that there's some good rent rates getting well received at like the Seaber and some other upscale properties in and around downtown.
All right, one last thing for you, Steve. Timeline. What are you thinking on that?
They're saying that they would start by 2018 and be done by 2019, in 2019.
Very good. Information from the man himself, Steve Lackmeyer. You can follow him on Twitter at Steve Lackmeyer. Continuous coverage in the Oklahoman. He keeps his boss, Don McCoy, busy with constant scoops and stories. And of course, all these are archived and found, updated online at newsok.com. Steve, thanks for your help.
Thank you very much.